as the week goes on. But right now, it's all about the Demon Deacs. Let's go up to Winston-Salem. Les Johns joins us. Les, first of all, there you are. We got him. He's good to go. Les, how we doing?
Doing fantastic, Mark. Thanks for having me on.
Always a pleasure. I wish we had better news to start with. The Deacs, I think about this wide receiver core, which I think is as good as anybody else in the conference. But Dave Clawson's guys suffered a tough blow today, didn't they?
They did. Donovan Green went down with an injury. Really the first day of fall camp last Monday, a week ago today. And, we got our update today that he'd be out for 3 to 5 months. Potentially could miss the rest of the season, potentially could be a late season, bonus addition for the Demon Deacons. It is a huge loss. I'm really excited about the Wake Forest receiving room. They still have, 3 guys back with more than 500 yards receiving last year, still have 3 guys back with more than 60 targets. So they'll be starting by Keyshawn Williams at the slot and Taylor Morin and Jamal Banks at wideouts. And they've got a ton of depth behind them, a lot of people to be excited about. All that being said, none of those guys are really built the same way that Donovan Green is. He's a massive, big, huge target, very muscular, very strong. And I really thought that he was on the verge of a potential all-ACC type season breakout. So it's a huge loss. If you're going to take a piece off this Demon Deacons team at any position group, I think me and you would probably agree, Mark, that it would be you'd rather lose a receiver than anywhere else because they are just so deep and talented at that position.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. It's also a testament to a great job that Dave Clawson and his staff have done from a recruiting perspective because, let's be honest, this is not a 5-star, 5-star, 5-star. These are guys that Dave Clawson says, you know what? They fit with what we do. And you know what? They've done a brilliant job developing players to the next level. And you go through that wide receiver room, you're like, wow, Wake's got some dudes now. They got, as I call them, Frisbee catching dogs. They got a bunch of them. But I hate it for Donovan because he's a big-time player.
Yeah, I hate it for Donovan. And, of course, he missed the 2021 campaign with an ACL. And what's strange is if he plays that year, does A.T. Perry really break out the way he did to become a future NFL player? So I guess that's the question is who emerges this season? Does it become a Wesley Grimes? Does it become a Micah Mays or a Walker Morrell, a transfer from Tennessee, or Horatio Fields, who had a great camp last spring and is back out on the field after missing last season with an injury? So there's lots of candidates to kind of fill in the gaps, and that's not even counting the 3 very experienced starters. But for Donovan Green, it's really tough, after missing the 21 campaign. Obviously, we don't really know where he goes after this, if he comes back late in the season, what his options might be for the 2024 season. I'm sure he'd be welcomed back, but then he may also want to take a look and see what the prospects are professionally.
I love Dave Clawson's quote after the media poll stuff came out last week. He basically said, hey, I'm having a hard time believing that we don't have one of the 27 best players in the league. Number one, he's right. Number two, you can't get too whacked out, though, with any of these polls. I don't care if it's the coaches poll, which came out today, or the media poll last week, or all ACC. But, all that to me is fuel to the fire for Dave Clawson and his team behind closed doors.
It's interesting you say that, Mark, and I really wasn't surprised to see the Deacs pick 9th overall in the ACC. I figured the overall general perception is, of course, you had the big transfer at quarterback go to Notre Dame, and folks don't really understand probably that this is Mitch Griffiths' 4th year in the system. Most people don't really understand that the offensive line has 25 years combined experience at Wake Forest. Folks don't really understand that this is an offense that's probably going to just keep ticking right along. But I really wasn't surprised to see them pick 9th overall in the ACC. I think they'll do better than that. But I kind of was surprised to see the wide receivers not get more, attention. And I was kind of surprised to see Jamal Banks or Donovan Green not up there in the mix. I thought those guys definitely deserved an all-ACC nod.
Yep, I totally agree on that. All right, let's talk about this team. I mean, obviously, the first thing you think of is great coaching. They don't beat themselves, and man, do they score. The scheme just works. And, I'm sure maybe some folks that will be lazy in the media go, oh, they don't have Sam Hartman, so they got to take a step backwards. I don't think that's necessarily true. I mean, I expect Wake to start putting 30 plus on people like they've been doing, it seems like, for the last 6, 7 years.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way, Mark. I don't think the offense is going to take a step back. Like I said, they return a ton of experience on the offensive line. They've got a ton of talented receivers. The running game needs to become more established. They're looking for Justice Ellison to kind of make that next step. And then Damon Claiborne's a highly touted recruit out of Virginia who will have a chance this season as his pass blocking has improved to really show what he can do in terms of making game breaking plays at the running back position. So it's a team that's going to score some points. The question then becomes a couple different points becomes the thing is, can the defense slow down the opposition, and then can the offense score in crunch time? Wake Forest last year was 1-3 in one score games, and in three critical games had the ball in the final 2 minutes with the chance to win it with the 2 minute drive and weren't able to put those games away. If they can do that this season, then they're probably going to exceed expectations.
I know Wake fans are probably not going to like what I'm getting ready to say because this is going to be the analogy, but I think there's a lot of similarities with Wake and North Carolina from a year ago.
Yeah.
Great offensive teams that all of a sudden got to November and for whatever reason hit a wall. Both of them defensively had question marks. We were like, hey, we just need some stops, any kind of stops. And it's really interesting to see where both of them are. And again, I know this is a Wake Forest conversation, but defensively, do the Deeks have enough numbers? Because everybody's going to get nicked up and knocked around. I mean, it's just the way it's college football. But do they have enough numbers defensively that when we get to November and it gets to be crunch time, that all of a sudden it's not one of those things where it's ole, first to 50 is going to win the game?
Yeah, right now it probably depends upon the position in which the attrition happens, Mark. There are areas on the defensive side where they have established depth. Linebackers looking really good. Safety looks incredible, with Malik Mustafa, Jalen Garnes, and even Nick Anderson was all ACC just a couple years ago. Probably won't even start for the Deeks at safety. So they're loaded at safety. The question mark becomes in the middle of the defensive line, the defensive tackle, where they brought in a couple transfers and they need to see who emerges in camp. And then also at cornerback, where they lost Amari Stevenson to a season-ending knee injury. He was a depth piece probably for them. But they've got a couple starters they know they can rely on, and Deshaun Jones and Kalen Carson, who I think is going to excite ACC fans with his play at corner and probably even some at the nickel this season. He's very speedy, can cover well, and is a hard hitter. So I believe that they've got their starters at corner. They need to find some established depth to feel good at that position, especially for later in the season when those injuries start to pile up, because that's been a position that quite honestly has failed over the last couple of years late in the season because they just ran out of bodies. If Kalen Carson and Deshaun Jones can stay healthy and if they build some depth behind them, this is a team that probably can withstand those rigors of the season and be ready to play the likes of Notre Dame and Syracuse to close out the season.
Les, it's been fun to watch from afar. And of course, you have a front row seat in Winston-Salem. To watch Dave Clawson put this program together, the way recruiting has gotten better and better and better, they continue to develop like nobody's business, but also the job John Curry has done as far as facilities, whether we're talking football, baseball, basketball, whatever the case may be. Wake Forest has written some serious checks. I mean, you go walking around, and John and Curry, I know, likes to talk about it all the time. Come see us and all that stuff. When you see it, you kind of go, wow, man, the Deeks are not messing around. It's really been cool to watch from afar.
Yeah, I think the number now is 170 million over the last 8 years, something like that. They've invested in facilities, and there's a new building with the new locker room that's opening up, and media get to tour it, I believe, on the 17th, if I remember correctly. Although some videos have already been posted, there's a lot of excitement around Wake Forest athletics, and football is different. And the upgrade in facilities, the uptick in recruiting, you know, I'm fortunate in covering Wake Forest athletics that Dave Clawson allows the media to be there for every minute of spring camp and for every minute of fall camp leading up to, game week, basically. And I've seen the 2023 class arrive in the spring and some more arrive in the fall. Now, I'm telling you what, this is probably looking like the best recruiting class I've seen Dave Clawson put together. There's already some guys who are emerging and they're already getting comfortable. And there's a lot of guys in that class that will make an impact this year in special teams and maybe some in the secondary, in terms of adding some depth at corner and safety this year. So I'm excited about what they're doing recruiting wise. And obviously, the facilities are just top notch. They're some of the best in the league.
All right, I'm going to let you crystal ball this a little bit. A successful season for Wake Forest is what?
Well, the first level success is making an 8th straight bowl game. They have a program record 7 straight. They released a graphic about that just a few minutes ago. It's the second longest streak in the Atlantic Coast Conference, just behind Clemson. And I think that the season's going to come down to this middle area of games when you've got Pittsburgh coming to Winston-Salem, you travel to Duke, and then you host NC State. Those 3 or 4 games in that group will determine whether Wake squeaks into a bowl game or whether they get up to the 8-4, 9-3 echelon. If they can capitalize in 1-score games, then they can get towards the top of that. But it's a team that's likely the window is probably 6-6 all the way to 9-3, and it's a play here or a play there that's going to make the difference between this being a good season for Wake Forest or a great season for Wake Forest.
Les, I don't know about you, but again, none of us know how any of this is going to play out. But on the surface, it appears the whole Clemson, Florida State, they're sitting over here. And then like 3 through 7 could be any combination of Louisville, could be Wake Forest, you talked about, NC State, North Carolina. Maybe Miami's legit. Here comes Pitt, nobody ever talks about. Syracuse is up there. Dino's got a smile on his face. He thinks they're going to be pretty good. I mean, it really is a hard league to judge when you take Clemson and Florida State and just kind of say, guys, you just go stand over there for a second. We'll be right with you. And then, like I said, 3 through 7, 3 through 8 could be any combination. It really just feels totally wide open.
It was impossible to put together my order of finish for the ACC ballot. Seriously, it's like you said, the top 2 were easy. Then you probably didn't want to say this, but the bottom 3 or 4 I thought were kind of easy. But then that middle 7 or so was just impossible. It's like I kind of had Wake middle of the pack, but then you're like, okay, who do you put third? Who do you put fourth? I put UNC, I think, third, but I don't really believe in their defense yet. I put Pitt fourth. I put like Miami fifth, but Miami we always kind of put up there, and then they never kind of show us what we think they're going to show us. I was lost. I was just completely lost.
What do you think happens with all this stuff after the Florida State news last week, and now this who knows with Stanford and Cal? I mean, again, you've seen this league for a while. What do you think happens here?
Yeah, I'm just hoping for stability, Mark. I mean, the adding a couple schools on the West Coast, it would be neat to have those matchups. I'd hate to fathom the travel nightmares that would arise, especially for like Olympic sports. You can kind of rationalize it for big time college football, but when you're talking, a midweek soccer match or a volleyball game, it becomes how do those logistics kind of work out? I'd like to see some stability in the league. I like to see the grant of rights be upheld, and for us to be one big happy family. Whether it goes that way or not, time will tell. Judging by recent events, there's likely to be more upheaval and uncertainty if we know anything.
Yeah, who knows? Les, listen, always a pleasure. It was good seeing you in Charlotte a week or so ago, whenever the media days was. As crazy as the world is, you never know. But we'll see you down the road. We look forward to seeing you in the opener for sure.
Thanks for having me on, Mark. See you guys real soon.
You got it. There's Les Johns, of course, takes care of business with Demon Deacon Digest.